Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
It's Commander's Horn, episode 116. Today I am partnered with two other partners, my partner at the desk at official CDPR events, Flake, and another broadcasting partner, Gwent analyst, faction ambassador, Shinmiri. Have you caught on yet? We're going to talk about Gwent Partners and also dive deep into the last 2 weeks of Season of the Viper. Thanks for joining us, my friends. Let's get started. 117. Is it 117? It's not 117. Hold on a second. I gotta unmute my guest right now. This is the best. Let's just quickly do that. I got confused. I got thrown off by Twitch chat. Can you believe it, guys? Can you believe
Just
it?
off by one number.
I got busted by Twitch chat. I don't know. I think I'm right about this one though. I think I'm right about
So
this one.
117 IQ play on this one right here.
Is it 117? Because 114. Oh, whatever. You guys don't.
That's a lot, dude.
You guys
That's
probably don't even
impressive.
listen to my stupid show. No, I'm just kidding.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I can't believe you're that high already.
I mean, it's funny how time just flies, right? I mean, I was just talking to you guys. We'll just jump right into it. What's going on, Flake and Shinmiri? Thanks so much for being on the show. We were just talking right when we were setting up the podcast about Gwent Masters, the future events, and how we're looking forward to hearing more, as I'm sure everybody in the chat listening is also looking forward to it. But I was saying, like, we've always had a date to look forward to. Every event, there's been a save the date at the end of it, or Homecoming we knew was coming out. There was that date, maybe a patch date. But now we know there's monthly updates, so like we kind of know there's always an update coming at the end of the month. But without a date of an event, it feels just a lot different this time. How do you guys? I mean, you're all part of the events as well. We're all looking forward to hanging out again, I'm sure. Flake, how do you feel about the upcoming kind of dearth of information on events at the moment?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, because I just did my first event at Open Number 8, where it was my first official, cast with CDPR, and then they kind of, we've discussed this, you and I, before, where I remember when I hosted Challenger 4, and you were there, and we were flying home, and you're saying, okay, now this is the tough part. It's the coming home, and then coming off of that high, and then sort of, integrating back into real life and just waiting for the next event, and can, hit you with a little bit of depressive feelings and whatnot, because you just come off this big high and down to this low. So it's kind of I'm a little bit on the fence about it, because I know that there's going to be more events, and that's amazing, but I'm also very greedy, and I want to know when the events are, kind of thing, so there are going to be events, and that's great. But that TBA of like the to be announced of the dates of Challenger 5 and the, the major masters, the grand finale, those don't necessarily have a set in stone date to it. So that can be a little bit unnerving. Yeah. But the good news is that they're happening. They're not going to not happen. I mean,
of course.
Right.
Especially now when we see the forward momentum. Homecoming is kind of done. Like, Homecoming has broken through. We've had an event since then, and now we've got expansions and stuff. So I don't think anybody's concerned about events and happening or not happening. It's just, it always seems like there's something the community is just like beating the hell. There's a topic they're just beating the hell out of, right? It's like no unit decks. Last podcast we talked about that with Pumpkin and Martheus, and now it's now there's no unit decks. People are still kind of really upset about it, but it's also like lack of information, lack of news, and stuff like that. And I think that the community, it just feels like they're just looking for the next chest to sit on. About is this like is the lack of news on professional events, Shinmiri? Do you think that is as big as the community might make it seem?
I actually feel like the community is not making that big of a deal out of it. There's like a couple of people, like competitive players, trying to light a fire under CDPR's butts to announce something, or at least plan something for future esports events. Mm-hmm. I feel like the community at large hasn't been a deal of it. But I personally, I know the three of us are all biased, since we're all part of like the broadcast and production team have been. Mm-hmm. I really hope they announce something soon, because there's something that I would be really looking forward to, mm-hmm. As both a viewer and part of production. And it's just it was such a great time last time at Challenger 4, all the way back in September. I can't believe it's that long already. But yeah, so if they set a date soon, that'll just give a lot more people something to look forward to. And it'll also help with the competitive side of things too. I know a couple of competitive players that have kind of drifted away from Gwent recently because they don't have anything to play for.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the game is fun, the game is great, but the some of these people, they need something to push for, a goal, right? Like top 50 ladder for qualifiers or something. So something small like that is enough, but right now they don't have anything.
I mean, when you look at the top of the ladder, you see a lot of familiar names. Siadzikov is there. I know Green Knight's up there right now. Alessio 1996, also known as Ultraman, is usually up there as well. And there's like an obvious name that I'm forgetting. Not Tailbot, but like somebody, I think he's like currently at number 1. But all of those players, they have the motivation, the drive to always push to be the best all the time, and that's very admirable. But as far as every single competitive player in the game, or even every player that is maybe wouldn't consider themselves casual, but also do like to have things to look forward to, like follow the scene on Twitch. It's good to just kind of increase that sort of that coverage of motivation, because there's the people who just want to be the best all the time and love Gwent, and those are the purest fans of the competitive scene. But then there are the people that follow lots of different things, are part of the community, let's say, maybe don't stream, they stream but maybe don't I think you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Got to make it more exciting. I think I'm just rambling a little bit about where I'm going on that one. And just to solve the mystery, my stream title had 117 in it, which was not correct. So that's why we just jumped right into conversations about a number. But yeah, sorry if I'm not closing off that conversation, but yeah, just a little bit more. And when events come back, these players would come back as well, I imagine, because we all have to find what's moving us forward. I mean, we're talking about the events we're involved because we work on it. We're excited to know when we are going to be kind of getting to work an event like that again. The players are excited to know when they'll be able to be competing for a chance to be at these events and for that prize pool. So when they don't know that, they can just go play something else. They're great players. They can probably do well in all sorts of things. When we don't know that, we stream Gwent, we cast Gwent. But those players will come back, and then we'll be back with them. And I think it'll just all come back when we get that news.
Well, I think a lot of it is like what Shinmiri alluded to, or the point he made. First of all, I just want to say, Shinmiri said light a fire under their butts, and that's the difference between Shinmiri and I. I would totally say ass every time. Asses. That's totally that's a Shinmiri Flake difference right there. But he's very correct about the fact that the importance of the date is not necessarily for us as the broadcasters and as content creators and as people who do this. We do this professionally, obviously, but there's nothing on the line for us other than our reputations and putting on a good broadcast.
Yeah, we're for these players. We're going.
Okay, but there's just like any other athlete, and I don't want to, it's hard to draw lines between esports and standard, athletic sports, but someone who's preparing for a tournament or preparing for a competition, or like if I was going to say the Olympics, let's say, if the Olympics were the Olympics as they stand are every 4 years, and there's a regimen of training that you have and how to prepare for it. You do the worlds, you do this, you do the qualifiers, and then when you know where that date is, you prepare for it in a certain way. You have a regimen, you have a schedule, you go for it. For this, you don't necessarily, when you do not know when that actual date is, you have to be ready. You have to be on the ready all the time because you do not know where you're going. Now, obviously, there's going to be a stretch of time where, the next 2 tournaments, Challenger 5 and the Grandmasters tournament, are set in stone, and you pretty much know whether you're making it or not. But there's some on the bubble who might not know, and they don't know what's on the line.
Yeah.
But even beyond that,
right? You want to stay in shape.
Well, that's it. You want to be warmed up. You want to stay loose. You want to make sure that at the drop of a hat, you can go ahead and perform. But yeah. I think for the next season, it is probably in everybody's best interest if those dates, or at least the month, was set in stone so that people can already sort of schedule and know what they're playing for, so that if they don't hit one milestone or they don't get into one tournament, they are ready to go and know what they're playing for down the line. I think that's an important factor moving forward.
You bring up the next season, and I think if and when they do season 2, they're going to be open to changes. Nothing's set in stone for that yet. I really hope that they quicken the pace of tournaments in season 2. Because right now it's season 1. It's been how long? It's been 2 years since season 1 has started.
Well, that's but I mean, I don't know if that doesn't count. I don't think because you're talking.
I mean, they're playing a different game. It's so
you're talking about a game that's been
that's a totally different topic. That's like a whole thing we could talk about.
Sure,
how
that's episode 117. Yeah,
the fact that there is an invitation out there for Life Coach, who is the winner of Challenger 1 out there. Should he want to take it? But he played a different game. And and when he played in Gwent Challenger 2, he was playing a very different game then too. But he
played when a Soleno Harpy spawned 2 eggs and was 5 strength. Like that's when he
on
played.
The last podcast we talked about he won the tournament where there were faction passives, my friends. That is a time of the ancient ones, really. Only me and Dust remember.
Only Nilfgaard can mulligan. Yeah.
Only Nilfgaard. Whoa, what a reference. That's some stuff I just forget.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Before I forget to say, by the way, I should say good afternoon to everybody and that it is May 9th. And this is Commander's Horn Podcast. And I didn't do all the stuff, but I do want to say thanks again to everybody who's supporting the show as well. And thank you for the Commandos, to the latest Commandos, Mark C, and shout out to longtime supporter Var Nation as well. He knows why, but it's Commando related. So shout out to those Commandos.
Commandos!
And follow Commander's Horn at Commander's Horn on Twitter for updates about the show. I am going to take a little vacation. Actually, Shinmiri, this is relevant to you because we were talking about Gwent Challenger 4, how we had such a great time. And I think you went to Italy right after that event.
Yeah, I did.
Is that right? So I'm going to Italy on Monday.
Nice.
I'm actually going, it's my birthday on May 12th. And then on Monday, it was the next day, we're zipping off for a vacation to see some family. And I'm going to Italy again, and that's really exciting. And Shinmiri, you've been to Italy. How was it when you went? It was
amazing.
Yeah, you just said time flies. Awesome. It was a while ago though, right? Like September.
I went for 2 weeks immediately after Challenger number 4. I was going to bring this up earlier when you were talking to Flake about how coming back from the plane, you're going from a high, you're falling off a high. I didn't really experience that because I went from one high to a different high.
Yeah,
from Challenger to Italy vacation. So maybe next time I'll experience it first.
I mean, it's it's different. And I remember for Gwent Open number 1, although for Challenger 1, I definitely had to come home and digest. But for Gwent Open number 1, I remember going on. It wasn't really a vacation. It was we went to Cologne for a wedding, and I remember just freaking out that I wasn't streaming at the time because it was the first time I was away for a long time, and I was like, I can't believe I'm not streaming. And now I'm thinking about cutting streaming, not the podcast streaming and not videos and stuff. But I don't know if I can do daily. I don't know if I can do daily streams and stuff. You guys are. Flake, you're getting into a more deeper schedule at the moment. Shinmiri, you're just rocking it every day. You're starting.
Well, I cut the cord from the corporate life, so it's a whole different ballgame now.
It feels good, right? It feels good. Shinmiri, this is kind of related. You're starting your stream because we started the podcast. I want to make sure that you get to start your stream on time. You're able to chat until 1ish, I guess, and then we'll throw you a tasty host.
I'm here as long as I'm here as long as there's stuff to talk about.
Trooper.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you get your stream as well.
No, don't rush. Don't rush on my side.
You do it daily, and you also perform within top 50, top 20 some seasons. Correct me if I'm under.
I have
representing you, as well as streaming every day for at least 4 hours, probably more than that, right? Or is it
something along that? Yeah, every weekday. I usually take weekends off.
Yeah, but it's just you're just taking care of business. What's that daily life like? Because I can say that I haven't really. My streams top out at 4 on a really heavy stream day, and I stream maybe 2-3 days in a row, and I'll take a day off and work on videos in this podcast. It's just I find that it's really hard to do the daily thing sometimes. How do you keep up? Obviously you love Gwent, but how do you keep up with the daily life?
I think the secret is to play different decks. Play stuff that you enjoy. Don't feel too much. I try not to feel too much pressure on silly things like faction ambassador. I don't feel the pressure to have to play Skellige because I'm faction ambassador. I also don't feel the pressure to I try to ignore the pressure to play every faction. I don't like monsters that much, so I very rarely play monsters on stream. But I know some other streamers have talked to me. Flake is a little bit offended.
I'm just saying.
I love monsters.
I'm just saying. I don't know if you can take a look at that beautiful mug right there.
Yeah,
it's my boy.
Hey, I got nothing against Larry, but
leave Larry.
I know other streamers have told me that they felt a little bit of pressure to play different factions and have more variety. But I say just play what you enjoy, because like your stream is going to be at its best when you're having fun, when the streamer is having fun and enjoying what they're playing, right? So it's kind of pointless to force yourself to play something that you're not really enjoying.
I'm having more enjoyment out of the creation of content. Whereas I feel like when I'm playing Twitch, I'm just recording myself in my life playing the game, which is good. It's how I get great footage and great gameplay a lot of the time. But sometimes it's just like the freedom of, I mean, I've been gaming for a long time. I'm turning 36 on the 12th, and I think that I'm just used to being able to I've been streaming for 2 years as well, so talking about used to and talking about habits, I mean, it's all been very kind of jumbled up over the last little bit. But I like being able to take breaks. I like being able to walk off tilt. That's a big one. Because I feel like I can't walk off tilt because the break I need maybe isn't the break that my audience wants to take. Or it could be like it could have been like the first game, and then I feel like, okay, well, if I don't shake this tilt, this is the rest of my stream. And it's just, I'm emotionally involved sometimes. I really like I like entertaining people. That's the thing. If I feel like I'm not doing that, I get a little down on it. I think that's the thing about it. So making videos, I love that. Doing the podcast, I love talking about this game. I could talk about it all day long. Maybe we should.
Well, that's
start
part of it. Like, and I just want to say, it's great that like there's different outlets for people who create the content, and the Gwent Partnership program, which promotes that as well. And like you're saying, like when you want to walk off tilt and whatever, like sometimes taking a 5-minute break and just stretching your legs and grabbing some water is not going to do it. Like, I know that there are days where the only way that I'm going to get off of a really rocking tilt is taking a walk 3 blocks and eating a McFlurry and then coming back. Like, that's the only way that I'm going to actually medicate myself off of that ledge, right? So
the fire down, yeah.
Oh, it's just, but that's the thing, only ice cream will put out that fire at some points. But it's like you guys said, like, I don't know how some people can do this for 8 hours in a day regularly, and good for them. Like, you're a trooper. And I found myself, like, I was doing a 9 to 5 job every day and streaming 3 to 4 hours after work every day for 5 days a week. I went on a 40-day stretch run once where it was just bananas. But like, it's all about what you love, because I didn't like my desk job and I loved this. So having the passion to do it also helps. Like when Shinmiri says play the decks you love and you'll never really get tired of it, that also sort of stretches to play the games you love. And it's no secret, because I wasn't always streaming Gwent, right? Like, I was very focused on Magic. I loved Magic, but then eventually, I mean, not that I rediscovered Gwent. I always loved Gwent, but the new cards, the new game, the homecoming and everything, I just was enthralled by it and kept finding new layers to peel back. And I finally was able to sort of peel away from the corporate life. And now, like you say, McBeard, like, you feel like your streaming is just recording content for videos, and that's where you get a lot more of your joy and fulfillment. And I'm somewhere in between Shinmiri and yourself, where like, I love the streaming aspect, but I really, really am falling in love with the creating of videos part, which is just super cool.
I mean, playing is really good too. And Shinmiri also, and also when you look at people who like stream like high volumes of games like Pumpkin, I'm going to compare it just to myself because I'm self-deprecating. But being really the skill of the game, the amount of winning and the amount of logical rationalizing about losses and stuff like that, and probably less frequent misplay. I mean, I know we all make mistakes, but it's just I can safely say that Shinmiri and Pumpkin are better players than me, and they probably win more than me on average. So they probably have better days as far as like what I can equate a good day to be, I think. So that's a big part of it too. So I think that a lot of people that maybe have to look at it like playing a lot, winning has its own inherent fun, kind of just sort of, it just comes along with it. It just comes along with a lot of that stuff. But you also talked, Shinmiri, about playing different decks. And one thing I wanted to talk about today is actually talk about playing Gwent. And specifically, there's like a couple of leaders that I think they're kind of shining, or they're different in this patch. Maybe they're standing out a bit more than they used to. So I'll lead off here, Shinmiri, because I talked really quickly, like, what have you been discovering? What have you been playing lately? Because you do play a lot of decks and you play some pretty fun stuff sometimes. I still like that Uma Lippi, and kind of just that
Nice.
comes up every time it comes up in any of my games and any of my streams. If I see a Skellige player play Uma, I'm just like the influence of Shinmiri. And everybody who's kind of in that Lippy sphere, and I know Nilfgaard, shout out to Nilfgaard with Suvi and those guys.
Definitely.
But you're now playing. You said that people might be sleeping on Philavandrel dwarves, and you said that there may not be a lot to talk about there, but I think there is a little bit to talk about when you say sleeping on. In that, it is good. You're saying it is good, but nobody is really playing it.
Yes.
That is the main. That's the main way of looking at it.
Yeah. I think it's super underrated right now. I've played it a little bit on stream. I've played it a little bit off stream as well. I have like a surprisingly good record with it, which is why I think people are sleeping on it. It's a decent sample size now. I don't know how many exactly. I think I've played like 30-ish games with it. It's my best faction score at the moment. I think I'm almost 2,500 with it. It's basically Philavandrel with a bunch of dwarves. Almost every single dwarf in the game thrown into the deck. It's got very, very good long rounds, and it's also got a very good potential of countering your opponent's bleeding in round 2 by just getting carded.
I imagine you get the typical too, right?
Yeah, and carryover. It's the typical Philavandrel strategy of like lose round 1, in 3 cards, pass early, then use Philavandrel in round 2 to get your entire hand boosted. I was basically, the way I came up with it was I looked at Scoia'tael in the patch notes, and Scoia'tael probably got the roughest patch out of all the factions. They got nerfed multiple ways. Their most prevalent deck, Ethne, got nerfed by like 3 or 4 provisions.
Yeah.
And they didn't really get much back. They got Weeping Willow provision buff, which I feel like is not really relevant. And then they got a small buff in a couple of dwarves. So that's kind of where the direction I went. And it's been doing really well for me. So it's something that I would probably play more on stream, explore more, and see if people are interested in this sort of deck. It's been doing super.
Yeah, Ellis the Thunderbird in the chat bringing back the classic gripe of dwarves being better with Philavandrel than Brewer. That used to be. We're talking about hot topics. The community is kind of like you hear it a few times. That was definitely one of them. And apparently at one point there was even a consideration, but I guess it just
my lore.
You can't. Yeah, my lore. You can't just change it if something gets meta and then something stops getting meta. Like, what was there still an intention of changing that stuff? But I don't know. I think it's great. I think the dwarf packages has always had potential because they have those they have the engines, the defenders. They're almost like they're conditional, but the condition is automatically met, so they immediately become a very serious threat right away. And of course, the carryover that you can get from Gabor and from the Marauders has always been kind of like there's got to be something there. And the classic strategy of like the ancient Skellige strategy is if my other rounds are better, why am I even playing this first round? Why am I even bothering? Yeah. But Weeping Willow is interesting. I think they just wanted to make the hand buff a little bit more varied by making Skags and Weeping Willow, who are both double dipping it. One of them has to be riskier than the other, I guess. I don't know if they got there, but at least it's a cool card that Treants. It's just going to proc Harmony probably as well. Flake, what have you been playing? Do you have any thoughts on Scoia'tael, or have you been more focused on something else?
Well, I just want to just touch upon the fact that we're since Homecoming dropped back in October, it's now been like 8-9 months, and we're still discovering new archetypes from the base cards and the base leaders that we've had for forever. Essentially, the fact that like Shinmiri's discovering decks. By the way, I bumped into that deck the other day. I think it was yesterday, where it was a Philavandrel and dropping dwarves. I was like, "The hell is this?" And it was unfortunately, I don't think that my opponent had much practice with it. I ended up winning, but I was surprised, and it was actually a quite functional deck that was really, quite good. And I think it's interesting that still now today we're still discovering archetypes and we're mixing and matching to a favorable success rate, wherein it's not just a matter of here is the faction and here's the leader and here's the deck you have to play with it. Here's the faction and here's the 3 viable options for it. It's beyond that now, right? Which is great. People are still scratching this beyond the surface and really digging deep and uncovering more and more layers to the game, which is great. And we just got a new expansion and there's another one coming soon. So
monthly updates are really helping too. Yeah.
Yeah, and the patches and everything are really sort of tweaking and making things happen. But what I want to say is that what am I playing right now? I've been having a lot of fun since the patch drop for the Nilfgaard, where we're playing a lot of cool Nilfgaard lists.
Yeah.
And I went from I was like a freaking tickle away from rank 1 playing a Calvate Zoltan Vivian combo, which catches a lot of people by surprise. The last
Nice.
it's been really
Vivian.
really work. It's been exceptional where you're playing Albric to put Vivian on top, and then in your last play is usually Zoltan onto Calvate Vivian onto. So you're safe in a short round and you're safe in a long round. Where I have a deck guide up for it. I don't want to sort of toot my own horn or sort of self promote here, but like I have a deck guide for it, and it had a lot of fun with it. And so all in all, I'm having a lot of fun with Nilfgaard, I haven't even. I'm very much a monsters player, and I have not touched monsters in weeks, actually, because of the fact that ever since that patch hit, there's been so much to explore and touch. So like between soldiers and Anna Henrietta decks that I'm just sort of messing around with. Witchers are kind of having a lot of good synergy, so I've been having a lot of fun with Nilfgaard lately.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I think Nilfgaard has. I actually do want to talk about how like the ways Nilfgaard has changed, and the ways I guess that it hasn't changed. There's a Reddit post that said something like the best Nilfgaard deck, and it was just a collection of golds that you see in.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that one, Shinmiri? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was looking at it and I was thinking, yeah, I mean Swears is part of that power package now. They did get that card, and I guess there was some options brought in for. The Alba Pikeman is it seems like a decent bronze that you could consider playing at any given time. But I mean, it seems like in a lot of ways, do you think, Shinmiri, that Nilfgaard got that identity, like a little bit more identity, or do you think that like the strong cards are just there's not enough variation in the strong cards at this point to really explore? And of course, I know
Great.
Yeah,
Great question. I think identity and competitiveness are two separate things. So I think Nilfgaard has better identity after patch. Like the spies archetype is a little bit more fleshed out. Tactics also a little bit more fleshed out. And the assimilate cards got buffed, but there's just more options in playing Nilfgaard. But when you're talking about competitive decks that you can take you like high in pro rank and can have high win rates, I still feel like Nilfgaard is still playing the same cards, just like that Reddit post that you mentioned. It's just Swears is added in. The best Nilfgaard decks are still like mid-range control, Witcher package, lock, a little bit of point slam, a little bit of everything. The most competitive deck doesn't have that much. That's my opinion.
I think it's the
identity elsewhere, just not in the.
So it didn't really change. It didn't really change how strong they were. It just changed how. Well, I guess it didn't really change how they were strong either, I suppose.
I feel like it's the complete opposite, honestly, Shinmiri. Like I think that identity is kind of still up in the air, but they got a buff to be a little bit more competitive. Like, what is the Nilfgaard? Like, can someone explain to me what the Nilfgaard identity is? I understand that they have spies and assimilate works with spies, and I understand that they have like soldiers. At the same time, like there's mages, there's monsters, there's beasts, there's this, like having a faction tag, or rather like a card classification, doesn't necessarily mean that it's an identity, I guess. I don't know. I still feel like they're a little bit on the fence. Like I assume that moving forward they might work on it, but I don't think that it's an identity yet. They got a rework, they didn't necessarily get an identity. Like I guess what you're saying, like when you say Northern Realms, you think engine. That's Northern Realms identity, right? Right. Exactly.
Engine. So what do you what's the equivalent when you think of so when you think of monsters, it's like Thrive or
Thrive and
Deathwish.
Deathwish, big bodies, like big slam, right?
Consume
like big
and Deathwish
beasts.
as well. Like
so the closest thing that comes to me for Nilfgaard, the first thing I think about when I think about Nilfgaard is
say that one more time.
Like,
I think I lost you. You said control?
Is control. Yeah. I feel like Nilfgaard is the no fun allowed faction.
Yeah.
It's like I shut everything you down. Everything that you do, I shut down with either locks or removal or like seize now. Seize is kind of like a creeping into the Nilfgaard identity with Swears, with Ardle.
Yeah.
But that's never changed, right? Like it's always been about control with Nilfgaard. So when people saying that they never had identity, if you're not really changing anything, so are the complaints still going to be around? Because what if they change? They still have a crap ton of lock and control, but they're so. I mean, the initial complaint was that they had no identity, and if we're going to attribute control to Nilfgaard, that hasn't changed. So is the problem still prevalent? Are they still without an identity? Like that's worth like discussing as well, in my opinion, because I feel like they either got nothing, like they still are lacking an identity, or people don't recognize what the identity is. It's one of the two.
I think that the initial complaints about Nilfgaard weren't necessarily founded in the like it was a comparison to and it was around a time when like you could say that monsters, and especially like now Scoia'tael and Skellige, have a really good bronze. They have like a really good bronze package. Skellige has some cards that are kind of like really out there, but Northern Realms as well. But monsters has just always felt like really collected, and Nilfgaard had a collection of cards that were just not being played. They were all the cards that were changed, really. Like the reveal was just not being played. They must have had. I mean, there is the complaints on social media, Reddit or whatever, but there's also the stats that they see, and play rate has forced them into action before. So by actually adding cards, like when you look at something like, this is a really bad example, but it's an example everybody should understand, like Dazbog Runestone. Like you play the Runestone, you look at a card pool. Now there's going to be more likely there's going to be a card in that selection that's going to work with something I have on the board. There's not going to be 12 reveal cards that are just going to make this like, I don't want to play this. And it also makes the options are available. They're not all great, but they're not all supposed to be great as well. But the identity of strategy denial, or as some people in the chat were saying, no fun, or as you guys were saying, or annoying, I think is somebody in the chat. Strategy denial is a real identity that Nilfgaard definitely has. Nilfgaard has ways of messing with the board and messing with your deck that no other faction comes close to. Like the way that like Vivian's effect is like, it feels very Nilfgaard, and they have a lot of cards that care about it, and it was a great addition, and it was the card that immediately saw play in the faction already. But they also had a lot of great cards already that worked with it. And
they have some good stuff. They have some great stuff.
Seize a lock, graveyard. Seize lock. The lock is a big deal, of course, as well. Putting stuff in your deck, messing with row adjacency with your spies, like that is a solid identity. Where I think they missed the opportunity is Witchers. They got a bronze Witcher you have a bronze Witcher in your faction, man, and of course all the Viper Witchers that are seeing play. There is an opportunity, I think, to make that card a little bit more. Just I don't know. I just don't think the card's interesting. That's just me.
I mean, the Viper Witcher adds to the identity of messing with your deck, right? Nilfgaard has like Traherne, Viper Witcher, Cantarella. These things all mess. Infiltrator, even they all mess with your deck.
I think it's less about the effect. It's that it's the Witcher tagged. It's kind of like how Lambert's Swordmaster is like the Witcher tag is applied to a card that has other cards that care about it. Vesemir Mentor, Evo of Belhaven. I want to maybe play these cards, but the Witchers are just like, they're not. Even when they're buffed, they're kind of just not really advancing my strategy. So if I'm playing Witcher Nilfgaard, I don't care about messing with their strategy. I care about buffing my Witchers and doing Witchery things.
But that's just like the disruption as a Nilfgaard attribute, like as a trait of Nilfgaard, is huge, and I think that that's important. I think that people need to understand that it's not just about the name under the card being alchemy or under the card being Witcher or whatever. It's about the spirit of the actual faction being disruption, because there's so much. Like Sweers is a huge disruptive card now that's humongous, and people are now stealing. I mean, I've had my Roach stolen a million times as a Nilfgaard player because they know that Vivian's a part of the board and things along that road.
My Ceres as well. I was playing Small Blood dudes.
That's so much.
What a heartbreaker.
Right. So when people prior to this were complaining about the fact that, noting rather quite feverishly that Nilfgaard has no identity. What's the identity? Well, it wasn't revealed. It wasn't this and that. I think that it has always been about what we all talking about right now, which is disruption. And all these cards that come out that we're talking about, maybe some of them are just not being played, or they're not powerful enough, or they're not well provisioned, so they're not being played as much, so that identity is not in the forefront. Right now, something like, Soldier Package and Soldier Swarm and that kind of point slime is a little bit more competitive, so disruption is not the biggest, dog in the fight from a Nilfgaardian standpoint. But the identity is there. It's just not, it hasn't bubbled up to the top yet. But I mean, watching people like Markvius play Usurper every day almost, and seeing sort of the nightmares that it can potentially cause is important. And I think it's unfortunate that the most Nilfgaardian of leaders is the least played, and it's the worst provision, so it's not going to see that much fun.
Well,
I see Flake shaking his head over there at the mention of usurper.
Yeah, usurper existing. I mean, I think we talked about this a lot. Nilfgaard's still a really hot topic. I think it's worth talking as this kind of evolves. But I think I'm going to say on the report card, as far as identity is concerned, when you compare it to something like monsters, like we said, we have like big units, thrive, consume death wish, bleeding vampires, stuff like that. Like it's like we know that monsters are going to be like the big scary graveyard thrive, like big units. Big scary units, reset's going to work on them, tall removal's going to work on them, and they have like kind of anti-control and death wish. Like monsters is just we feel good about monsters. Monsters is probably like the least complained about faction, like card base, and well, Eridan, I guess probably people. I don't know what people think about Eridan right now, but when I compare it to like Nilfgaard, I think that I'm starting to think disruption, spies, they're trying. It may not be there yet, but it's definitely like an identity that you can put in there. Like I think that you could say spies now have like what 2-3 more cards that care about that. That's very important. So like that's very important for their card pool. So they do it more and differently than any other faction does. The soldiers, okay, so Northern Realms has soldiers as well, but this is The Witcher. I mean, I'm going to give them a break on this one. It's a game. It's a universe of war and a lot of humans in it. So it's like, well, what else are we going to call them to make them different? Like it's just going to be like another name for them, brigade or something. You need to have tribes within your factions, and that's just how it is. And Northern Realms maybe is moving more towards knights. It's possible. And then finally they have the that's the last thing I was going to say. They have they're working on poison and stuff and
tactics.
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 That's it, tactics. And seizing kind of goes in within that. And then they have like Shaelmar, which is just such a cool card because it matters in so many different ways. I actually have been playing it. I wish it was just a little bit cheaper, but it's a really cool card, Shaelmar. But I think that they're like there. Like when I play against Nilfgaard, the things that I expect, it's not just like I'm not just expecting like another Ifrit Regis thing. Like I'm expecting very specific things. I'm playing around Swears. I'm playing around Vivian. I'm thinking about Traherne all the time. I'm thinking about what's in my hand. I'm thinking about round 2 and Infiltrator. Thinking about my mulligans and like how important it is to think. Like it's just very, very specific stuff I think about
Shillard
matchups.
Shillard is a really unique thing.
Yeah, and that's not in every deck too. I think he's priced.
Even something like Ardal, where you're constantly under threat and you might not be playing certain cards because you do not want them to go to the other side of the board at that moment, right? Where you're like Nilfgaard as your opponent, I think is definitely one of those factions where they're the most unpredictable, that they're the most you're usually on the most eggshells playing against them because they have the most to really put the screws to you and not just outpoint you, but really screw up your strategy long term. Like Shillard, it's the most ridiculous thing where you're kind of you're not like where you're holding on to an Ithleen for your Sheldon, or you're putting your Ithleen on a card that isn't Sheldon to eat a Shillard that you know is going to come down as first card in round 3, right?
If that's not identity, I don't know what is. Like,
but that's it. But right, and disruption is that identity, in my opinion. But they've always had that. They've always been that identity. So maybe to circle back to my point that I was making earlier, is that the identity has always been there, but it's just never been clearly identified. And I think people were kind of they were a little bit misconstrued about what that identity was.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think people wanted the identity. People were crying for identity to be like spies and tactics and basically archetypes to be stronger. I think identity is a little bit more broad than that. Yeah. It's about the theme of the faction, which I think we've talked about as
It's the
archetype is not identity.
Yeah, it's the classic thing where people know that something's wrong, but they don't know how to fix it. Like it's that kind of sort of like you know that Nilfgaard doesn't feel complete because there's a whole chunk of cards that no one is playing. Now Nilfgaard feels complete, so the identity has ironically been revealed. So I think that I just think that's it. Reveal was in the way. It's just you just looked at it's like Nilfgaard under construction. I don't know what to think about it, and it's true. Like they did have cards that did the same things as other cards. Like it was hard to ignore that if you already had this other issue kind of already getting attention. It's just like it was kind of making a perfect storm. But yeah, they were always disruptive, and now they're more disruptive than ever because people like playing them more. I think saw a lot of Nilfgaard the other day. Yeah.
Maybe Reveal's going to be the new faction with the new faction coming out. Maybe it's just they're going to have a complete. They took all the Reveal away from Nilfgaard, and they're going to just say like maybe the new faction is going to be a complete reveal oriented, where everything can start from scratch, and they can really focus on something along those lines.
Here was my kind of like weird idea. Instead of revealing a card, you get a piece of information about your opponent's hand or deck or however it would be implemented. So it would be like a very basic thing at first. Like your opponent has a bronze card in it or whatever, which means less and less, or which means more and more as like the hand sizes. But then the next piece of information you get is maybe about the power level of one of those cards. And now you can start making assumptions. And then the cards that care about reveal procs now just care about how much information you have. But I feel like this would be like, I mean, it's the idea. I think the coding of it probably would be really difficult. But I think that if they could get something like that right, it would be really, really interesting. It's like, I know this is like getting information of what was in the deck and not in the hand. Did anybody think that was OP or uncomfortable or wrong? I actually like that aspect.
No,
I
thought it was okay.
Was cool.
No, because you have to roll the dice, and like, let's say you're playing reveal and you roll the dice and you're playing against a particular faction, you're worried about one card. If you roll the dice in a 1 in 9 and you've revealed the Sheldon that you thought they were holding the whole time, you're like, oh, okay, well, there it is. Yeah, but every other time, if you're just revealing a random bronze card that you don't give a crap about, that they mulliganed away, we were like, all right, well.
I don't think anybody thought it was OP. I thought they just didn't like the randomness aspect of like Arbalist, the old Deathwind Arbalist.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just like sometimes getting 2 damage, sometimes getting 4 damage. Yeah, just all up to randomness, and it's annoying. For me, I want to take it back to what you said about like your idea for reveal, giving you information about your opponent's hand, and not always necessarily just like showing you one of their cards. I think that's really cool. Remember the old Cynthia in beta? She did reveal a card, but she revealed the opponent's card with the highest strength. Right, and boosted herself by that. Like you could do some version of that.
It was always my frightener.
It doesn't reveal necessarily, but it
tells you what the highest strength of your opponent's card is, and then you can, by that information, you can kind of eliminate maybe some potential possibilities your opponent might have in hand, and then now you don't have to play around those cards anymore.
Yeah, there's something.
I think it's super smart.
It's smarter than just like having a card turn over and being like, I have Igni. And then it's like, I don't feel smart playing around it anymore. But if I think you could have Igni and I have some information to go on, then it feels like maybe that it's helping me, right? Like what the game is trying to do is helping me. And yeah, I'm going to just throw that idea out there. If something like that sounds like it could be working, it seems very Nilfgaardy. Seems Nilfgaardy to me.
What a leader, like a reveal related leader. The old reveal leader where you could reveal 4 cards. What was it? The old Morvran where you just you reveal 4 random cards in either hand and whatever, or your opponent's hand. A leader like that where you let's say it's a one use, reveal 2 cards in your opponent's hand and reduce their strength by 3. Like I think that's not too overpowered, because it's a very situational and your opponent can always mulligan those cards away if they need them or not. But I like where you're going with this, where it's not black and white information you're getting ideas, and you need to be able to sort of, your opponent will be able to play around that and have a chance. Because the old school reveal where if they revealed your good cards and you can't mulligan them away, because you'd lose the game either way. I think that, like you said, and there was some suggestions actually in the chat where even certain bronze cards that you can play, such as if your opponent has an artifact, or if your opponent has something boost by X or whatever, but even some of the more, like some of the bigger gold cards can actually have, reveal 1 card out of your opponent's hand, but that's just a one-off. It's not like a million of them doing it. You want to really limit the actual hardcore information, but the ideas that you're putting forth, like, even if it's something like you're leaving breadcrumbs, or it's a progression system where your first
gets better the more you do it, or
exactly,
or
like if reveal was a tagline, let's say, and if for every reveal that you play down, you get more information or better information. So like reveal 1 is
go ahead.
No, sorry, I was gonna say like you said, reveal 1, like the first reveal you play, boost by 1 if your opponent has a bronze card, and then the next reveal you say is boost by 1 if you're or
that's actually even better maybe than what I was suggesting, like the way Shinmiri said, the way Cynthia used to work, like the idea that the card's effect is what gives you the information, not so much that there's like a proc of information gaining. But imagine there's a card that's like on deploy, look at a gold card that isn't in your opponent's hand. Like you just always would get that information. And then if you got to see that card, bing, you would get like a proc of whatever that information gathering would be. And I don't know, I think this could be something there. This is my weird.
I think incomplete information is kind of the key.
Incomplete information,
Oh,
but just going on more than what you normally would have if you weren't.
Here's a card idea for you. Deploy melee row, boost by amount of bronze cards in opponent's hand. Deploy range row, boost by amount of gold cards in your opponent's hand.
You would always play for.
You know,
yeah, something like that.
Well, it
Something
depends
like
on
that,
what
right?
round.
You get
in round 3.
You get the same information either way, and they're probably gonna have a lot more gold cards in most of them.
True, but you know, I mean,
But even that card's
right?
existence might even change the way you play against Nilfgaard. Like in a weird situation where it's like, okay, well, I have like Necromancy or Freya.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kind of do the same thing, but they're different.
Better.
Yeah, so if I have like, if I have like a bunch of bronzes, I'm like, okay, well, I have a Necromancy and a Freya. I don't want to.
For sure.
It's just an interesting. That's a cool idea. I mean, this is I could do a whole podcast I think about.
I really like cards, and I really like cards and mechanics that force you to play outside the typical way that you play. Like whether it's changing sequencing or changing overall macro strategy, it's really cool to not always be playing the same strategy every game. And Nilfgaard does that a lot.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great faction.
I mean, that's why I always liked old Caretaker and Han Marvin's Blue Dream and cards that, I mean, you can build your strategy around them, but there are often times, and Henriette is a great example of every game you play will be different. You can't count on anything being very predictable. And, trying to make spies work, I did play a lot of Duchess and Foreman, and that's another card that makes every game completely different. If you're playing against Northern Realms, you can now copy their engines, or you might not be able to copy anything of value at all because you can't really make the synergy work, or they just have on-deploy effects that you can't proc, like Pirate Captain, let's just say. So it's like you have to really think about how much value those cards are going to offer you. Yeah, spies just need, like, it's the last thing real quick, just because I quickly talked to you about this, Shinmiri, when I asked you to be on the podcast, is what you thought about spies. And I mentioned it briefly in the last podcast, but I just wanted to like touch on it now because maybe you've experienced more, seen more. I've seen some cool stuff with Anna. I lost to a cool deck that I thought maybe had it with the Watchman putting a shield on an Enforcer. It's missing something maybe. I don't know.
I've tried a lot of different things with spies. I've tried different ways of protecting them. I've tried Moran to protect them. I've tried Ardle plus Thunderbolt Potion so that like you play Operator, then you Ardle the other one immediately and with a Thunderbolt Potion on the board, so you immediately boost both of them to 6. Like I've tried all these different things. I think my conclusion is that they're not very strong. And the fundamental reason behind why spies are not strong right now, I really believe this, is because the archetype forces you to play engines in the first half of the round. And then if you stick those engines, it forces you to play spies, which are not engines and that are bad standalone. So like you can't overload your opponent with engines. It's not like Northern Realms, where Northern Realms, they have engines like Arbalest and Lyrian Cavalry that encourage you to play more engines after them. Right, and then eventually your opponent runs out of removal, and then some of your engines stick. But with spies, you play like 3-4 enforcers in Rainfarm. Your opponent removes all of them, right? And then you have like Emissary and Duchess's Informant that are just like mediocre bad bronze.
Yeah, and you've been waiting to play them, right? It's like, I'm all set up, I'm ready to go.
Exactly, but they don't get enough. They don't get any value without the emissaries. What's the other thing? I had one more thought about this. I think it's
we
also
talked about
just
how
like
emissaries used to work and how it used to be you had cards that retroactively cared about spies. It was when you played a spy and something else, you had 2 things on the board that like then you could play a brigade. You had the spy on the board. Your opponent has to care about the spy and about the engine.
You had the Enforcer and the brigades, the spy engines. They applied retroactively to the board. So you could, and also Emissary was a spy that thinned, that ended up playing another engine. Emissary was a spy that played an engine, and they don't have anything like that right now.
Like, I don't want to go back to that.
It's funny, right?
That's a slippery. But that's
such a powerful effect. But is it priceable, right? Like, is it actually like? Could you actually price this? Could you give it? If you give it to a gold card, is it not? Well, Roderick is that card. So could you imagine playing with another? I mean, Willem is not quite Roderick, but you can it's gold. It's all gold stuff. It's not bronzes. That's the problem, right? The bronzes is what you're left with, and they're not performing. I think is what we're going with here. Exactly. Yeah. So
But
it's just
no,
thinning
they're-
consistency. It's like very scary, and I understand because you don't want the games to like the fact that old Nilfgaard spies couldn't fail was, it either worked or it didn't, but it didn't fail. The strategy was always sound. You get Mennoed at the end, and it was just like you knew it was going to happen. That's all. I'm done. My sentence.
My son. Well, I think they're just missing one extra piece. Like, there's the 2 engine pieces for spies. That's it. And there's you get 2 bronzes.
But it's not
that
even
you can really.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like they need some extra support that actually can synergize with the spy value. I mean, assimilate is kinda, maybe, sorta with spies ish. I don't know.
It cares about
It's close,
more
but
than
it's not.
just-
It's not something that when you play a spy, do X. Like, that's kind of what they're needing an extra of, something to that degree. But
You're saying they need an extra, like another bronze that is basically
remember the
what
enforcers,
does.
like back in the time,
Yeah.
exactly, where you had alternatives. You had more than one thing for your opponent to worry about.
I wonder if the 2 ping on the enforcer is keeping it kind of in a weird spot. Like, I feel like that card could be much more survivable and powerful if the ping wasn't so strong. Because the idea of playing an enforcer like old school, like if it gained, let's say it gained a charge for each. This is a realistic way to look at it, right? It gain a charge for each spy that you already have on the board, right? That's just like how Nilfgaard works with boosted units. It gains a charge.
Yeah.
So if the idea of a card gaining like 4 2 ping charges seems like a pretty extreme situation for, like, it's like a retroactive ballista. At 5, it seems like that's pretty crazy. But
Probably
if
needed
it pinged
gold
for
card.
1, yeah, gold card maybe could do that. But if it was pinging
Yeah.
for 1, maybe it could actually feel like it could be used. I mean, then again,
I think like you could
maybe
do
I'm
ping
wrong.
for 2 gold card, but also on an orders, so that your opponent could lock it or destroy it. Or
Was there ever a card that brought all the spies back to your side?
Yeah, 2 cards that did
Yes,
that. Actually,
that was
neither
a-
lasted.
Like, all of them. What if that was that a
Calvet
leader?
was a leader. Calvet's first
Mm-hmm.
ability, and you can go back since we were talking about Challenger number 1, throwback. Fion 56 actually played that John Calvet, the only player who played Nilfgaard in that competition. He played that deck, that leader that played spies, and then his single use ability was to bring all the spies back at one point.
That could be.
It was
so huge.
Yes, it was bad. It was
It's huge.
It had all sorts of problems. It was a different world, of course. There was card advantage spies, and there was like, and those cards were like heavily huge in points. Like, you're pulling like 11, 12 points back over. So it's just like, but it was just like, it was bad or broken. It was just a real swingy thing. But there was
Could it work now though?
I don't
Like, there's not many spies, and the spies are only 1 point. It could be good. Like you did, you drop your Nilfgaardian Knights, you boost them up a bit, and then all in one foul swoop, you're just bringing them back to your side.
Didn't one of the Sealocks wasn't he able to steal a disloyal unit, but then it was broken with Infiltrator, so you had to the thing is, Infiltrator broke a whole bunch of stuff, right? Because you could put the spying tag on anything, and then anything that affected a spying tag was like, Menno was already like pretty problematic enough sometimes, but it would be worse now because there's less units, right? So if you could like just nuke a unit or do something like that so influential, I feel like it would impact more. I don't know.
Does Purify cleanse the spy ability? Cleanse the spy tag?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So it is a status you could remove, but I mean the value of it.
I'm just saying it. So it's not. It's maybe it's something that's teched against. Like, I'm just saying, like, if that whole world of that one use bring all spies to your side kind of ability, if you can tech in a purifier too to sort of protect the points that they devoted to your side of the board, then I don't think it's all that bad.
I think it's cool. It just needs a limit. It can't be all.
And there's so many ideas.
It should be a limit of some threshold of how tall, like all units under X or an amount of units. Probably more like under X though, just so you could maybe do something more fun with
Give them all
spying. I did like the Infiltrator.
Like an 11.
He made you not trust your own units. That was so Nilfgaard, right? The Infiltrator applies spying, and it's like, I can't trust this unit. I can't boost it anymore.
That was so good.
I can't love him anymore. I need to move on to another unit. Like, it was just, it was so good.
You're like, I thought, so you just kind of, you're like, who the hell are you? Like, it's like, I thought I knew you. A little eyeball going back and forth. It's like, what is he up to?
I want to see Flake stream a game where he pours all his love and all his boosts onto an Arcaspore, and then his opponent seizes the Arcaspore with the Infiltrator spy.
Oh, that's that's like That would be a metaphor for my love life. It's just like everything into you and you're gone. No, it's just not true. It's fine.
Also can't take care of plants. I don't know if that's
correct.
true.
That's why they're immortalized on my ceramic mug.
Exactly.
That's it.
Fake plants. I didn't expect we would spend most of this podcast talking about Nilfgaard again, but I think these are like really, really good conversations. I kind of had set up to talk about some other leaders as well. I did want to talk about like why Henselt appears to be one of the best Northern Realms leader and how he kind of like maybe had a little foot race with Meve at one point, but now it's looking like he's got a lot of like really strong competitive presence at this point. And I was playing a lot of Svalbard, so I had like some stuff in my pocket here with the Skellige Ambassador. I was going to talk about your experience with Svalbard. But as we approach 1 p.m., I think maybe we can talk about like one more thing before we should probably wrap it up, and I should get this live. So I want to leave it. I'll leave it to you guys. What do you guys want to talk about? Something Gwenty, something fun, or we can throw it to the chat, and the chat can hurl some questions at us. What do you guys?
You talk about the partnership program that just
that is true. I mean, that was part of the community thing. Yeah, I put this at the top of the show, and then we kind of jumped right into talking about strategy. I do actually want to talk to you about the podcast is called Shake Hands with Gwent because we were going to talk about Gwent Partner, and I did open the show with that, so we definitely should talk about Gwent Partner, but I think it can extend to what we might want out of like kind of more of like the world of Gwent. We had the Gwent skirmish with our partners, with 8 worldwide kind of streamers. I was part of that, as well as Crokies representing Scotland and Broja representing Poland, etc. So it was really cool to have that going on. And I think that there's maybe more stuff that could be fleshed out for the partners, maybe something league based, maybe partners and pros. Shinmiri, you're both. You'd have to pick one, I guess. But the idea that like there could be like some sort of league based system where the partners could have roles in official programs, perhaps. I'm thinking about Round of Gwent and like how there used to be like a talk show that was like, it had regular like CDPR guests talking about stuff with Powell and later Ash, and had guests like Swim later on and stuff like that. Like obviously we're not going to be flying people all around to do official programs, but maybe we can broaden the scope of what could be included in an official program. And the way Shinmiri, you were talking about how we could use some more events. I think we could also use more tools for people to put on events and do events. And I think spectator mode is going to obviously be a huge part. I don't think I can talk to a single content creator that can't stop raving about what they could maybe do with spectator mode. On their stream, they could cast games, they could review games on for YouTube videos. I know I am very excited about doing that, but also about throwing tournaments, like not having to actually cut videos after the fact, doing tournaments live. That's a huge thing. That's just a massive change for the competitive scene. And I think that will be a huge thing. And if there's a way to do something licensed, something official when the spectator mode comes out and more people can get involved, and it could just be a bit more exciting, and maybe Crown Points can be involved. I think that if it's in the community's hands, I think we would take good care of it personally. But what do you guys think about the partnership program? What do you think that the future can be once we have like an established group of people that are like very focused on building excitement around Gwent's? Whoever's got the thought, I'm going to throw it over.
Yeah, I can start. I think the partnership program is a good stepping stone and starting point. Getting the community together, getting the content creators together. There's a Discord channel for all of them to maybe help collaborate and like talk to each other and maybe start just like spark ideas among each other and maybe encourage collaborations. That's really cool. The Royal Envoy title, the badge, those are awesome.
Yeah.
And I hope CDPR does a little bit more with like promoting those content creators, maybe on their official website, or even better yet, in-game client. Like, you know how when you start up the client on the left side, there's like some news and stuff. Maybe you could put one of those panels as like a featured content creator or featured partner for the week.
Yeah, lots of games do that. Lots of games do that.
I would love to see more stuff like that. I think, it's a good starting step, but I think they could be doing a lot more with it in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. Flake, what do you think about it?
I think that it's there are other games out there like Magic who have been exceptionally in overdrive in terms of promoting their content creators, and their community manager or their talent community manager is really, really good at making sure that the focus and the spotlight and a lot of the game's popularity the credit goes to the content creators and the actual streamers who make it happen. And Gwent has been pretty good in the past at actually recognizing the talent and making sure that the talent and the homegrown aspect of the game is in the forefront. Did they lag a bit behind it, I think it's because they had a lot more important things to do, like fixing the game to the
game
high
in a
level that
weird
it is
state.
now.
Yeah, it was in a weird state. It was
For sure.
Yeah.
So they couldn't exactly put all their eggs into that. They had to put their eggs into the basket of actually fixing the game. Once you have the foundation there, you can start sort of building the pillars and making sure that the garden looks nice, which is what we're working on now. So, but in the grand scheme of things, just look at where the game is at right now after they fixed it, and it's healthy and it's good and it's thriving. You have mobile, which is going to hit within 6 months. Right, that's enormous. That's freaking huge.
I like forgetting about it and remembering it. It's like it's like waking up and realizing your alarm is you still have time to go back to sleep. It's just like the best feeling.
It's a great feeling, and it's also a great barometer for the health of the game because they're investing in it. They said, you know what, this game looks really good right now. The community is embracing it. The everything's growing. Let's go throw out some more love to our content creators. And this is something that came out relatively quickly after the game came out in terms of, I remember being at Challenger, at Open 8 and talking to Vlad, and we're discussing it. And, he was saying, he's like, I know you stream some Magic and you stream some Gwent and whatnot. And I said, look, I stream Magic a lot because not only do I enjoy the game, but also because they really promote, the content creators, and they ask me to stream it and they give me some incentive, but I still absolutely love Gwent. And they're like, okay, he's like, we've got something. Don't worry about it. I said, no, I'm like, I don't need incentive to play, but I'm just saying that
it's about building excitement, right? It's about building excitement with the community. And I think that like initiatives take time. Initiatives take time. So we see like the Gwent library. We know that, it started off, it's bare bones. Now we can import our decks. Now we can make the deck guides, and we know that there's going to be we can export our decks into the library, but also we know that we're going to be able to import stuff into the game. We don't have it yet. We know it's coming, but we know that like, I think all these things like are just rolling out, and I'm absolutely fine for that. I just hope that, I just don't want any opportunity. Like I like the Discord channel. There's like a lot of good ideas flying around there. And I think that, only so much can be worked on at any given time. There's a lot of different teams on different things, but I think that the Gwent Partner Program has probably the most promise because I think that there's going to be some fun stuff that can be done to keep the competitive scene alive as well. It's just a really good pool of people that are showing that they're very interested and dedicated to being part of kind of growing the community and being present in that community. So and it's just you apply, you say why you want to be a partner, and you work and you do that. And that's, that should afford you opportunities. That's just like raising your hand. I'm interested in doing this. And sometimes a lot of people don't know this, but if you show interest and show that you can do something, a lot of times that's how you get any job. That's how I got
the opportunity to cast, like, or to host Challenger 4. When I was announced as a host of Challenger 4, probably about 95% of the Gwent community had no freaking idea who I was. And I had already streamed Gwent for, 14 months. So you put in the work, and I've always been a very big champion of the fact that hard work does pay off. And this is why the whole partner program is a great thing for that, because it's now a matter of rewarding and giving spotlight to those who put the effort in to grow the game, and CDPR recognizing the fact that a lot of the game's survivability, because let's be honest, I'm not going to be naive to think that the game wasn't in a really bad near-death state in terms of where it was. It was, I don't want to say life support. That's a very grim view of it. But let's be honest, the community who continued to play it and promote it and create content for it are what kept it afloat and kept it relevant through that 6-month period of no content before Homecoming came in. And that's important. I think CDPR recognizes the fact that community is an important element to survivability and growth of the game. So I just hope that moving forward, that it's not just trinkets and emblems on the game, and it's not just aesthetics. I hope that it goes beyond that. I hope it goes to inclusion and kind of making the content creators part of the brain trust of how to promote and spread the joy that is this game that we all put our heart and soul in.
I think they've definitely been doing that, and it's just going to continue to move forward. I think that one thing that Gwent has done really, really well is just been really transparent. And I think that I feel like Gwent has always been a love letter to Witcher fans. Like, this is the card game that they put into Witcher 3 that people thought was neat, right? And they asked for like, maybe we can make this neat card game. And like, here we are now, and here we are. Like, it's it's like having Game of the Year, having Witcher as an IP and having Game of the Year, like the clout. I thought the game would be. I knew the game was going to be. I knew the game was going to be popular, and I think it's always felt like kind of a time traveling game. Like it got popular like really fast, and then Challenger, of course, and like the Life Coach surge, and like it was just really really big, and then it's almost like we got the sequel immediately. Like we jumped forward 5 years to a sequel where everybody was excited again, and it wasn't the game we knew. And we look back on past tournaments, and it's like a past we don't remember, like an alternate reality. It's always felt like it's been jumping forward. So while it's gone up and down and up and down, I really hope things are on the upswing, like for good now, because the growth feels like it's there. And yeah, I mean, I do like monthly updates though. I do like that kind of constant churn and stuff like that.
I mean, it'd be nice to know when the tournaments are going to be, and that there are going to be another tournament. I mean, I think it's safe to say
they just blindsided us with a tournament mode. Like no game's done it. Here we go. Like
well, they've done it before. They've sort of, you know, like the best is that my favorite are those dev streams where Pavel will reveal something and he's like, oh, and it's available tomorrow, and you're like, oh
yeah,
amazing, like that's great. But I mean, let's just be realistic here. At the same time, where like if we're gonna be prioritizing what's important, knowing that there is going to be another season is a lot more important than knowing when those dates are going to be. And at the same time, having a tournament mode, in my opinion, is not as important as making sure mobile is ready to rock and roll at full steam, right? So
priorities, right? Yeah,
but let's be honest, there's no shortage of things that they're A, working on now that's important, and B, can still work on in the future, and ideas that can go and room
games.
to grow.
That's games.
Yeah. For sure. There's a lot of upside still.
Yeah. Like I'm not worried at all. Like I'm exceptionally excited for the future of what the game is, and it for those who stuck with it and who supported it, the community program, the partnership program, and what CDPR is doing to build Gwent, and Jason Slama's like passion for it, and Pavel's
building
transparency.
A lot of goodwill built. A lot of good built.
Oh, 100%.
And how about Powell modeling on the new CD Projekt Red store? An important piece of news that we forgot to pass up on, or that we almost forgot to mention. The CD Projekt Red store, finally out there, and hopefully, I mean, we're all in the U.S., so we're not getting anything from the CD Projekt Red store.
Oh yeah, that's unfortunate.
But
hopefully, maybe one day.
Yeah, soon.
They got some really cool stuff on.
Some exclusive stuff like the Geralt Ronin. I think I saw somebody tweet. I think it might have been Rafal that tweeted something like, "The success of Geralt Ronin directly impacts like how much like weird and out there stuff that they would actually like get made, because they want to make like Geralt in the tub figurine, right? Like that kind of that kind of thing. Like the fans were like, nah, I mean, I'd buy it. And they're like, all right, well, now put your money where your mouth is. Here it is. And it's like kind of like, all right, well, you like Geralt tub. Here's a cool thing.
How about a statue of Geralt and Yen on a unicorn?
It's funny. You won't say ass. You'll say butt, but you also reference the raunchy scene in Witcher 3.
I just want to make a quick.
So unpredictable.
I want to make a quick note that Shinmiri talking about, it's not available for us. We'll never get it. But right behind his head is the Shoop plushie that everybody wants.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm really itching right now. I mean, hopefully we can one day get these items in the U.S. Sorry, that's really itchy.
They're working on it. I think with someone was mentioning that on one of the I think it was one of the Polish forums where someone had mentioned that it's not available to NA, or that they're working on sorting that stuff out, and it's going to be hopefully available in the soon TM timeline.
Soon TM.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool at least. I mean, it seems like it's just always a love letter to the fans. It's just like I really think that's why I want the community to be nice. Damn it! Like it's just
damn it.
I feel like sometimes I get a little tilted when I see.
I think the community is nice. Like
they are. But sometimes I see.
You're always gonna see in every community. You're always gonna see the more vocal minority, right?
To hear this.
But I think overall the community is very good, and relative to other games and other like subreddits and stuff that I've frequent.
Yeah.
This is an awesome place. Awesome.
I mean, like every game is worked on very hard, and every game deserves like appreciation from the fans. But I feel like that CD Projekt Red deserves like less than any other game deserves like the harsh criticism. Like I feel like, I mean, it's just kind of like it feels like sometimes sometimes patches release with like bugs, and sometimes not everything's always well received. I feel like they're just like us, right? They're just trying to get this game to like a really fun spot, and they've been doing so much right, and I just feel like whenever it's just like, yeah, but when is when is this coming or when is that coming, and why don't we have this? And I think that this needs to change. And
The way I equate
it's all coming from the right spot, but then every now and then it's just like, well, this shouldn't be like this because it's lazy design. I'm like, how dare you?
Sometimes when I'm streaming and like you'll make a quick misplay or you misread or you don't read the chat right away, and everyone jumps on you. Oh, he doesn't even read chat. He's so this and he's so that and he's blah blah blah. Like, I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. I'm doing so hard. I'm working so hard here. Like, please love me for 2 seconds. Stop hating me.
Yeah, I mean, we're all human beings, right? We're all human beings. That's
most of us.
Yeah. Also, another Nilfgaard reference. Shout out to Nilfgaard humans. All right, guys. I think this is a good cast. I mean, I really just expanding a little bit more on Nilfgaard. I mean, this is the season of the Viper, and this is like the aftermath of the Nilfgaard patch. Nilfgaard just seeing a lot of play. Things change week to week, especially because the meta is just always changing as well. People are sleeping on one thing one week and then trying to find counters or successfully countering that thing the next week, and just you never know where the game's going to go. But I think this is a really good chat, and I think we're going to wrap it up. I want to know right this minute, tell me, Shinmiri, where people can find you on a weekly basis when you're doing your thing.
Yeah, I stream every weekday over at twitch.tv/Shinmiri2, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. CEST. And I also have a YouTube channel. It's also Shinmiri2, Twitter, Shinmiri2, everything. Easy, Shinmiri2.
Everything Shinmiri2. Right on.
Yeah.
And Flake, where can people find you as you have shed the corporate shell and are now streaming on a more regular basis?
Yes, I am Flake Unchained now. Father of Dragons? I don't know. Father of Archosaurs, I could say. You can catch me, so twitch.tv/watchflake. My new schedule is 10 a.m. Eastern time, so that equates to, what is that?
4 p.m. CEST, I think.
Is it 4 p.m. EST? CST? Okay, so 4 p.m. CEST, 10 a.m. Eastern time, and also on Twitter at WatchFlake. And on YouTube, I've started to really ramp up the YouTube game as well. So I'm pumping out probably about 5 to 6 videos a week, which... yeah, boy. So youtube.com/Flake Media. I don't know why WatchFlake wasn't available, or if I didn't think about it, but youtube.com/Flake Media. So again, thank you so much, honestly, I just want to, like you said, I shed the corporate life, and it's because of people who have supported me and view my channel and come in and support. So that means the world to me. You have no idea. It changed my life, and I wake up happy every goddamn day. And I will say ass and not butt.
Flake will never come to an event or a cast without bringing the host gift of a bucket of love. Pour it all over the podcast, pour it all over the chat, pour it all over the community. Spreading love and being kind. That's I see a lot of people that are all about that. I'm all about that as well. And
it's important these days.
It's just
honestly.
a positive attitude. Wishing the best for other people. It's really not that hard to do. It's a busy world out there. Speaking of busy world, I did say at the top of the show, and I'll say right now, that I am going on a vacation. I am going to probably drop podcasts from my phone as news drop. So I imagine that news about the update before the end of the month is going to be one of those things, and news about Gwent Masters is going to be another one of those things. So you can expect to hear from me on the feed. I will be here, but I won't be streaming. I won't be making very many videos. I'll be back in June with some updates on all that stuff. I'm thinking about kind of podcast first and foremost, and we'll see where we go from there. But I do like doing the podcast. I do like getting together on Thursdays live with my friends Shinmiri and Flake and everybody else who comes into the chat. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And I guess that'll be it. I think we'll do the little outro drop here, and we'll send our love over to somebody else. But till next time, thanks Shinmiri, thanks Flake.
Thanks for having us.
No, thank you, man. Anytime.
Find us at CommanderSword on Twitter. Email us at commanderswordpodcast@gmail.com. This is McBeard. Best of luck on the path.